The airfield was silent, too silent. The sun burned high above the desert base, glinting off the metal skin of the motionless F-16 that refused to start. Mechanics swarmed around it, frustrated, defeated, and sweating under the merciless heat. They had tried everything. Nothing worked. The aircraft, a pride of the fleet, sat like a fallen warrior. Cold, lifeless, humiliated. Then, from the far end of the hangar, an old man in a faded burgundy sweater began walking toward them, slow but steady. His steps echoed against the concrete, calm yet commanding. The young technician guarding the area frowned, confused. "Sir, this is a restricted zone," he called out. "Are you lost, Grandpa?" The old man stopped, looked at the jet, then back at the soldier, his eyes sharp like steel behind the wrinkles. "No," he said softly. "That bird and I, we go way back." When in that instant, everything changed. It had been 3 days since the base declared the F-16 dead. The jet, one of the oldest but most reliable in service, had suffered a mysterious failure after a sudden power surge during a test flight. Every system had gone dark. The technicians tried rebooting the flight computer, swapping circuits, and even replacing entire modules, but the Falcon refused to come back to life. For the young crew, it was humiliating. For the commander, it was a nightmare, especially with an inspection from higher command scheduled in less than 24 hours. "Without that F-16 ready for demonstration," said Captain Ruiz, his voice tight with stress, "our unit's reputation goes down the drain." By late afternoon, frustration filled the hangar like heat waves. The young mechanics muttered in defeat. Some kicked at their tools, others wiped grease from their hands in silence. That's when the sound of slow footsteps broke the tension. Everyone turned. An elderly man, his silver hair catching the sunlight, walked calmly toward them. His clothes looked out of place among the uniforms, an old burgundy sweater, worn trousers, and shoes that had seen better days. But there was something different about him. Something in the way he carried himself. "Sir, you can't be here," one of the young airmen said politely but firmly. "This area is restricted." The old man stopped, his eyes drifting to the lifeless F-16. "What happened to her?" he asked quietly, almost like he was speaking to an old friend. "She's dead?" Another mechanic said bitterly. "Flight systems are fried. Even the backups won't respond." For a moment, the old man said nothing. He just looked at the aircraft, the way a veteran looks at a fallen comrade. Then, with a sigh, he walked closer. "Son," he said, "that bird isn't dead. She's just scared." The younger men exchanged looks. Some smirked, others frowned. The commander, curious but annoyed, approached. "Do you know this aircraft, old-timer?" The man nodded slowly. "I helped build her kind back in '84. Name's Colonel Raymond Carter, retired Air Force engineer." A silence fell. The name sparked recognition in a few older officers nearby. Carter was a legend, a pioneer who had worked on the first generation of F-16 avionics decades ago. Stories about his precision and intuition were still told in training halls. Before anyone could stop him, Carter took off his jacket and rolled up his sleeves. "Let's see what she's trying to tell us," he murmured, stepping up onto the ladder. The crew hesitated. The commander opened his mouth to protest, but then closed it again. There was something about the way Carter moved, the calm authority in his every motion, that demanded silent respect. For the next few hours, the hangar was filled with quiet concentration. Carter's wrinkled hands moved with surprising steadiness, tracing wires, tapping panels, listening, not with tools, but with experience. He didn't need a manual. He knew this jet like a heartbeat. At one point, a young technician leaned close. "Sir, we already ran diagnostics. Everything reads 0. Carter smiled faintly. "That's the problem," he said. "You're reading what the computer says, not what the machine feels." He pointed to a nearly invisible crack in a connector beneath the main circuit board. A flaw so small it would never show up on digital scans. "See that? She's been shorting out under voltage. Replace that, and she'll wake right up." The crew scrambled to follow his instructions. They worked together, guided by the old veteran's quiet confidence. and when they reconnected the system and hit the switch, the F-16's engine roared to life. The sound filled the airfield like thunder. Everyone froze. Some stared in disbelief, others broke into cheers. The commander himself took a step back, awe in his eyes. Carter just smiled, resting his hand gently on the jet's nose. Told you she wasn't done yet. The next morning, the base was buzzing. Word of what had happened spread like wildfire. Every airman, every technician, wanted to see the man who had brought a dead jet back to life with nothing but his instincts and a wrench. The commander found Carter sitting quietly by the hangar door, sipping coffee from a paper cup. "Colonel Carter," he said, approaching respectfully. "Woe you everything. The inspection team is arriving in an hour. She's flight, ready thanks to you." Carter chuckled. "You owe me nothing. You just needed to listen. Machines speak. You just forgot how to hear them." The commander looked puzzled. "What do you mean?" Carter's gaze softened. "Back in my day, we didn't have these fancy diagnostics. We listened to the hum of the turbines, felt the pulse of the hydraulics, smelled the oil, watched how the metal breathed under pressure. A machine has a soul, just like the people who fly her." A few minutes later, the test pilot climbed into the cockpit and started the engine. The F-16 came alive again, steady, strong, and ready. As she taxied out to the runway, Carter stood silently, his eyes following her like an old friend taking flight one last time. When the jet finally roared into the sky, everyone on the ground fell silent. The commander turned to say something, but Carter was already walking away. "Sir," one of the mechanics called after him. "Where are you going?" The old man turned, smiling faintly. "My job's done. She can fly now. That's all that matters." They watched as he disappeared down the tarmac, his figure small against the endless horizon. Later that afternoon, when the inspection team arrived, they were stunned by the flawless performance of the resurrected F-16. The commander proudly mentioned that an old consultant had helped solve the mystery, but when they asked for his name, nobody could find him. His records showed he had retired 20 years ago and passed away 5 years prior. The hangar fell silent once more. Some swore they saw his shadow near the aircraft that night, just standing there quietly, as if guarding her still. Ending message sometimes. True mastery isn't in the manuals or the machines. It's in the heart that refuses to forget. The legend of Colonel Carter reminded everyone on that base that experience, passion, and respect for one's craft never grow old. And from that day forward, whenever a jet refused to start, someone would always whisper, "Listen closely. Maybe the colonel's still here, helping us bring her back to life."